Hello children, welcome back to our story. I Was There, 1066, The Norman Conquest by Jim Aldridge. Chapter 16. There were no sounds. I opened my eyes. I was lying on my back. Above me, birds circled in the sky, large birds, crows. Was I dead? Was this what happened after you died? I began to sit up and immediately my head exploded with pain. I lay down again and closed my eyes and the pain began to subside a bit, but it still throbbed and ached. You are alive, said a voice. I opened my eyes and saw Osric beside me. He still held his sword in his hand and his face and chainmail were covered in blood. You have been lying there for hours, said Osric. I checked and you breathed, but I didn't know how badly you were wounded. My head hurts, I said. I'm not surprised, said Osric. He held up a helmet and I saw that it was mine. There was a deep dent in the metal. You were lucky, said Osric. If the sword had gone through the metal, your skull would have been split in two. I pushed myself up, but slowly this time. I sat there letting the pain in my head throb. I looked around. It was gathering dusk, the daylight fading and the gloom of the evening starting to descend. A whole day had passed since the battle began. Even in this fading light, as far as the eye could see, there were bodies, men lying dead. And at the thought, tears sprang to my eyes. My father is dead, I said. As is mine, said Osric. I looked at Osric. You didn't run away, I said. He shook his head. No, he said, I stayed by my father's side until the end. I looked around at the hundreds, no thousands of dead men around us. There seemed to be very few living. Certainly no warriors, apart from us two and a few others. I could see people moving around, examining the bodies, turning them over to look at their faces. They are priests and servants looking for their dead masters and their soldiers, explained Osric. Where are the Normans? They have returned to their camp. They have taken many of our soldiers with them as prisoners. They are making sure there will be no counterattack against them. His head dropped as he said, I was lucky. They missed me because I was beneath some of our dead. We lost? Osric nodded. Once the king was killed, it was all over. King Harold was dead. Osric's words filled me with a sense of shock and terrible loss. King Harold had always seemed invincible, the warrior at the centre of every battle, the great and wise statesman ruling with a firm but fair hand over his people. How did he die? I hear it was an arrow through his eye. His brothers, Earls Gurth and Leofwine, dead too. Most of our lords are dead. They died bravely defending our king and our land, I said defiantly. It does not matter how they died, said Osric bitterly. They are dead. The Normans have won, and the Duke William the Norman will rule England. We fell silent as the fact sank in. All our battles had been in vain. England would be under Norman rule. It was the Norman archers that won the battle, I said. You said yourself it was an arrow that killed King Harold. No, said Osric. It was Stamford Bridge that lost it for us. The long march there, losing all those men, and the long march back. Without that, we would have won. I pushed myself to my feet. My head ached from where the heavy sword had smashed down on my helmet. Are you all right? Said Osric, seeing me stagger slightly. I am alive, I said. I will be all right later. He and I stood there, surveying the scene in the gathering dusk. The scale of the destruction, the vast number of dead that surrounded us was almost too much to cope with. What will you do now? Asked Osric. I shall find my father's body. I shall find his horse, and I will take my father's body home and give my mother the tragic news. Then we will bury him. I looked around at the dead. I will not let him be eaten by crows. The crows can have my father, said Osric. The tone of bitterness and anger in his voice surprised me. But he was your father, I protested. I don't care, said Osric. He was a brute to my sisters. He was a brute to me. He did not honour us in life. I will not give him false honour now he is dead. But I will help you look for your father and help you take him home. Your father was kind and wise and deserves my respect. Thank you, Osric, I said. My father was indeed all those things you say he was. Then let us find him before it gets too dark to see and the night predators come out, said Osric. Come back tomorrow for the next part of our story.